You're seeing this now because something in the universe decided it was time. It wasn't a random click. It wasn't curiosity. It was a vibrational code because the formula that Thoth revealed only shows itself when the one who sees it is ready. And if you're still here, it's because you already feel it. There's something strange happening inside you, like everything you were taught about reality is starting to quietly fall apart. You noticed the coincidences have increased. The world got louder but at the same time emptier. And that emptiness that used to hurt now pulses. Maybe you don't know how to explain it yet, but you feel it. That something is coming, that something has already begun, and that there's no way to go back to the character you used to play. Thoth didn't leave a manual. He left a field, a frequency, and it only activates in those who stop pretending they're in control. And it's at this exact point that the universe begins to bend to you. But only when you understand what really happens the moment you let go. To move the heavens, first move yourself because the universe is a reflection, not a response. Because all of this only starts to make sense when you realize what really happens the moment you let go. And this is where something inside you locks up because letting go feels wrong. It feels like weakness, like giving up. Since you were a kid, they taught you that life demands strength, focus, control. They said only those who dominate will win, that effort is the only path to success, that going with the flow is for people who are delusional. But what if that's exactly what's keeping you stuck? The more you try to force things to happen, the more they slip through your fingers. Have you noticed that? When you insist on controlling every detail, when you try to predict every outcome, when you work hard to make everything go right, something always goes wrong. The exhaustion builds up. Anxiety eats away at you. And life feels more and more out of reach. That's not a coincidence. That's a symptom, a reflection of a mind that believes it only has value if it's in control. But the universe doesn't work by force. It works by resonance. And here begins the paradox that Thoth knew thousands of years ago. Real power isn't about domination, it's about alignment. Water doesn't move mountains with force, it sculpts with patience. The sun doesn't scream to shine, it just exists. Nature's flow doesn't need to be pushed by effort, it moves through presence. The universe has its own intelligence, and it reveals itself when you stop trying to control it. And that's the point the linear mind can't grasp, because the linear mind only believes in what it can measure, predict, calculate. And anything outside of that it calls luck or madness. But the truth is, you've already lived this. Those moments when everything seemed to flow. When things just worked out, when you were in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people without forcing a thing. When decisions seemed to come on their own, and answers showed up effortlessly. That wasn't luck. That was alignment. It was your inner field syncing up with the field of the universe. And that only happened because, for a few moments, you stopped trying to control everything. You let go. You trusted. You relaxed. And in that space, something greater could take over. But this state can't be forced. It only shows up when you stop resisting. And that's what confuses the mind that's been trained to conquer everything through effort. Because in this case, the harder you try, the more you block it. The control that once felt like protection turns out to be a prison. The rigidity that once felt like focus becomes resistance. And the energy that should be flowing gets drained, trying to uphold an identity that's constantly on high alert. The mind that wants to control everything is really just trying to survive. But the spirit that wants to flow is ready to live. And it's exactly at this point that Thoth reveals something that contradicts everything the modern mind has learned about power, the awakening of the invisible oneness. To him, true power wasn't something you conquer, but something that reveals itself when you stop separating yourself from the whole. And it's here we start to see what used to go unnoticed. The universe isn't outside. It's not something you observe, manipulate, or try to figure out. It's the field you're a part of. You're not inside it, you are it. Thoth used to say, man is a star bound to the body, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a reminder that human consciousness is an emanation of the same source that created the galaxies. There's a spark inside you, vibrating on the same frequency that keeps the cosmos in balance. But that spark is trapped under layers of fear, control, identity, and separation. The prison was never physical. It was always perceptual. And when Thoth says, free your light, and you will be the whole, he's not talking about reaching something outside yourself. He's talking about remembering that there are no boundaries between you and reality. The separation between subject and object, between me and the other, between this is mine and this is outside, all of that is a trick of the fragmented mind. Because in the original vibrational structure, everything operates as one single organism. This is where the teaching of Thoth comes in as a vibrational key. Thoth doesn't fight against anything. He doesn't demand force or impose, and yet he moves everything. It's in the water that flows without resistance, in the wind that curves around mountains, in the sound that fills the silence. That invisible force that nourishes, connects, and organizes the whole without ever showing itself is the same one that pulses inside you when you stop trying to be special and simply allow yourself to be. And in that being, you become everything. You can feel this in the simplest things. When you're truly present in a conversation, you feel time shift. When you walk without rushing, something around you seems more alive. When you stop trying to understand and just observe with your whole body, there's a silent unity that begins to reveal itself. It's the whole whispering, you were never outside. You only believed you were. This state can't be produced through techniques. It's not the result of effort or study. It's accessed when you trust. Trust the other as if they're part of you. Trust the universe as if it's a mirror. And most importantly, trust the void as part of the intelligence. The universe doesn't need to be filled at every moment. Sometimes it manifests as silence, as pause, as space. And it's in that space that light can come through. But you only understand this when you feel what really happens in the exact moment you stop trying to decide. Because it's right there in that exact moment that a clarity shows up. One that didn't come from the mind. And this is where Thoth gives us one of the most subversive keys in all of his wisdom. The impulse to decide that truly transforms your life never came from you. Have you noticed that the most important decisions in your life were rarely made after long rational analysis? They just came, like a jolt, like a chill in your stomach that turned into courage, like a no that came out of your mouth before you could think, like a yes that moved through you without explanation. It's a movement that comes from a deeper place, a place where thought hasn't yet arrived. But the mind doesn't accept that easily. It wants to be the center. It wants to explain everything. It wants certainty, control, predictability. That's why it creates simulations, pretends to decide, pretends to choose. It makes lists, calculates, evaluates risks. But deep down, it's just trying not to feel insecure. Thoth knew that. He didn't see the mind as the enemy. He saw the mind as a tool. Polished mirror. Useful but not wise. A reflection of what's already been processed, not of what's still being born. And this is where the modern paradox shows up. The more we try to control our decisions, the more artificial they become. And the more artificial, the less aligned with the whole. That's why, when you align vibrationally, something really strange happens. You stop deciding in the traditional sense. You just feel the yes or the no rising up like an energetic pulse. And it's at this point that something starts to guide you. Something that's not external but also can't be controlled by logic. It's the field making choices through you. And when you stop deciding with your head, something else starts deciding for you. And that changes everything. The heart of the formula. It's like reality takes the wheel. You're still there, but the feeling of being in control starts to dissolve. And instead of chaos, a strange harmony shows up. Everything that used to demand effort, control, and planning starts falling into place through unexpected paths. Not because you planned every detail, but because you allowed yourself to step aside. This is where Thoth takes us to another level of practice. Flow can only take over when the ego steps down from the throne. Ego here isn't vanity. It's the illusion that you're the sole author of the experience, that everything needs to go through your supervision, your logic, your control. But the universe doesn't bend to that kind of attempt. It closes up, like a lake disturbed by restless hands. That's why true flow doesn't start with action. It starts with surrender, with the trust that there's an intelligence working behind the veils. And it only reveals itself when you quiet the noise of I know. The most powerful example of this is the Kon-Tiki expedition. An explorer builds a basic raft, trusting ancient navigation principles and a deep intuition that it would work. He doesn't try to fight the sea. He doesn't challenge the elements. He aligns with them. And what happens? Everything conspires. The ropes, once fragile, become stronger as the wood swells with water. Fish, for some unknown reason, show up at dawn exactly where he needs food. The wind blows just right at the right time and takes the raft to its destination. It's like the universe says, "Now that you trust, I can act." And that's the key difference between what many call manifestation and what Thoth called resonance. Manifesting isn't asking hard with your mind. It's becoming vibrationally compatible with what's already available. It's not forcing the universe to move. It's moving with it, becoming part of the dance. The modern mind wants technique, method, formula. But Thoth offered a kind of wisdom that's beyond manipulation. He pointed to a place where everything falls into place. Not because you try to control it, but because you finally understood that control was the obstacle. When that understanding settles in, the natural flow of life takes over. And what once seemed unlikely starts to happen, not like magic, but as a direct result of being on the right frequency. And when that resonance hits, even the impossible starts working with you, like the universe had been waiting for that exact moment. And it's this silent power Thoth spoke of. When there's nothing left to hold on to, that's when you receive everything. But what does that mean in practice? How can someone who apparently gave up finally access what they've always been searching for? This is the part where the mind starts screaming, because everything in it was trained to believe that achievement comes from effort, merit, and control. But Thoth didn't speak of effort, didn't speak of merit, and definitely not of control. He spoke of vibration. But this vibration doesn't turn on when you try. It turns on when you stop. But not just any stop. It's not passivity, not escape, not sitting around waiting for something to fall from the sky. It's a very specific kind of pause and active silence. A state where you're fully present but not trying to shape anything. Where you don't ask, don't demand, don't define. You align. You let the field speak before the mind. And when that happens, everything changes. Thoth never called this a technique. Never said it was a ritual. And maybe that was the biggest mistake of those who tried to translate his teachings later, because what he did with the initiates couldn't be taught as a method. He didn't teach, he awakened. And what he awakened couldn't be described in words. It was a key that only turned when the disciple, for a moment, stopped trying to be something. When they stopped trying to be God, to be a master, to be wise, and just were. That's what almost nobody gets. The power Thoth carried wasn't in what he did. It was in the state of consciousness he placed himself in. And that state wasn't someone superior trying to control the world. It was someone emptied of self, fully connected with the whole. In that emptiness, a presence would rise so intense, so alive, that reality around him started to reorganize. Not by command, but by vibrational coherence. And you've seen this happen. You've been around people who didn't say much, but when they spoke, everything stopped. Or even when they stayed silent, the energy around them changed. You couldn't explain why, but you felt it. It was like their field was full of something you couldn't see but somehow recognized. That's not charisma. That's frequency. It's the field responding to the absence of interference. But none of this can be forced. Not even fully understood. That's why Thoth didn't give it a name. Didn't leave a formula. Because a name would create idolatry. A formula would become a market. What he left was a field. And that field can only be accessed when you approach it without trying to possess it, when there's no more need to hold, define, prove. Only then, when everything you held on to falls away, does true power appear. The dissolution of the defending self. And when that happens, a part of you panics because the ego, so used to protecting itself all the time, starts to lose control. And when control slips away, fear shows up. Not ordinary fear, but a deeper fear that has no name. A fear of disappearing. That's the last shield, the densest layer between you and the source. And that's why so many give up right at the moment they were about to cross. Because surrendering to the flow requires the sacrifice of something most people still value too much. Self-image. What you believe yourself to be. what you built to protect yourself from pain, failure, rejection. All of that starts to dissolve. But Thoth used to say, as long as you try to protect yourself, you separate yourself from the source, because all protection is based on a belief in threat. And where there's threat, there is no trust. And where there's no trust, there's no pure vibration. The field doesn't flow where there's tension. It only manifests where there is space. Imagine a tense body trying to receive a wave. The wave hits and bounces off. Now imagine a relaxed body, surrendered, open. The wave enters, flows through, moves, transforms. What changes isn't the wave. It's the state of the one receiving it. And that's why defense weakens you, because when you build walls, you don't just block what threatens you. You block everything. You block healing. You block intuition. You block the support the universe is trying to offer. You keep spinning inside your own mental field, trying to predict what might go wrong, trying to get ahead of the pain. And in that spinning, you drift farther and farther from the vibration of the whole. Thoth knew that true power doesn't lie in protecting yourself, but in no longer needing protection. Because someone in coherence with the field is no longer fighting life, they're dancing with it. And that dance requires vulnerability, not weakness. Conscious vulnerability, openness, permission, a state where the me that always needs to be right, strong, in control starts to dissolve. And when that happens, something new begins, because the me that was defending was a filter, a noise, a fragmented field. As it dissolves, it gives way to what was always underneath. A being that doesn't need to prove anything. That doesn't react. That simply radiates. A vibrational being that no longer lives to survive, but to shine. You felt this before, even if just for a few seconds. In those moments when everything feels calm for no reason. When you look at the sky and, for a moment, you're not trying to understand anything. When something hurts, but there's no resistance. When you're with someone and you're not trying to seem like anything, you're just there. Whole, present, defenseless, no armor, just vibration. That's the state that reintegrates you with the source, because it doesn't separate. It doesn't divide. It dissolves the illusion of separation. You stop being a lone bubble trying to control the ocean. You become the ocean. And at that point, there's no reason to defend, because you understand, through direct experience, that nothing real can be lost. Nothing essential needs protecting. What is true doesn't break. What is essential doesn't hide. And when that me disappears, what shows up in its place can no longer be manipulated. It begins to manipulate, but not with force, not with domination. It influences reality through its coherence. And that's where we hit a point that almost nobody talks about when it comes to spirituality. Thoth wasn't just talking about soul energy or invisible worlds. He was talking about systems. Doesn't just transform your inner world. It destabilizes everything that was built on fear, on control, on centralization. And Thoth knew this. He said that any system based on imposition is doomed to collapse, because it disconnects from the organic intelligence of life. Nature has never worked through central control. Neither has the human body, nor the planets. The heart doesn't tell the liver what to do. The sun doesn't give orders to the moon. The intelligence of each part flows autonomously, yet interconnected. That's the principle of living decentralization, a system where every part is responsible for itself but acts in resonance with the whole. That is trust in its purest form. That is collective coherence. And that's exactly why, when someone starts vibrating in deep trust, they shift the field they're in. They reorganize invisible structures. They disturb old patterns. And not because they're trying to change the world, but because they've become a new frequency within it. Just like a single healthy cell can regenerate an entire tissue. Just like a new vibration, even a small one, can collapse a fear-based system. And that is also revolution. Not the kind that fights, screams, or destroys, but the kind that vibrates so differently, the old simply doesn't know how to respond. What's based on fear can't understand someone who doesn't defend themselves. What's based on command has no idea what to do with someone who acts in synchronicity. In practice, that means your state of presence impacts more than any speech. That a community can function better when each person is aligned with the whole than when everyone follows an imposed rule. that a family balances more through real listening than rigid hierarchy. This isn't idealism. It's biology. It's physics. It's real Hermeticism. It's Thoth saying, the macro is just a reflection of the micro. And if you shift your field, you change everything within its reach. This vibrational surrender, when held with steadiness, isn't naive. It's foundational, because it creates networks. It strengthens bonds, not out of need, but out of energetic affinity. And that's why so many structures collapse when someone starts vibrating differently, because what was held together only by survival contracts no longer has space when a new order emerges. An order based on mutual trust, not veiled threat. That's the intelligence Thoth saw long before modern systems even existed. The wisdom of a universe that self-organizes when there's no excessive interference. And that's what he implied. The highest wisdom isn't in the mind that plans everything. It's in the field that knows where to grow. And when you start operating in that model, the entire universe responds with a precision that no logic can explain. The formula reveals itself inside you without words. But this is where many people get lost, because at this point the mind, used to classifying, organizing, defining everything, tries to capture this intelligence with words. And that's exactly where it gets frustrated, because what Thoth taught isn't something you can master. It's something you can only live. And the more you try to put it into a formula, the further you get from the real experience. That's why true wisdom is scary, because it slips away. It moves like the wind. It doesn't let itself be trapped. And Thoth knew that. The power that truly transforms isn't the one you can explain. It's the one that passes through you without asking permission and changes everything inside without needing an argument. Mystery isn't an obstacle. It's the engine. What the mind calls the absence of an answer is often the beginning of real revelation. Thoth used to say that truth is too simple to be controlled and too deep to be taught. And this echoes in the heart of the great spiritual traditions of humanity. The ancient Upanishads already said, "Whatever can be spoken is not the truth." Dionysius, the Christian mystic from the 5th century, said, "God is the most radiant darkness, not because he's absent, but because he's too much light for the human mind to handle." And the Gnostic spoke of sacred agnosia, the knowledge of not knowing. The moment when the ego finally quiets down, and the being feels, for the first time, the vastness of what is. That knowledge is direct, intuitive, and that's why it doesn't fit in a book or a doctrine, or even a video like this. It can only be recognized when the mind accepts it's not the center. And in that exact moment, something deep opens up, because the field of the whole doesn't respond to accumulated knowledge. It responds to the vibration of humility. It's like trying to understand the ocean by holding a glass of water. The mind wants to analyze the contents, but the spirit wants to dive in. And only when you let go of the glass do you realize how limited you were. The same goes for techniques, for systems, for fail-proof steps. None of them work if they're used as crutches for the ego. But all of them become portals when used as a point of surrender. That's where true gnosis reveals itself, not as information, but as recognition. A kind of clarity that doesn't come from explanation, but from coherence between what you feel and what you are. It's when silence starts making more sense than any speech. It's when you realize that yes, the universe speaks, but not with words. It speaks with field, with vibration, with alignment. And only those who are whole can hear it. And that portal doesn't appear to those who know, it only appears to those who feel. And when it shows up, it doesn't come with flashes. It doesn't bring voices from the sky. No promises. It just vibrates, like a silent presence you recognize without ever having seen it before. It's like something inside you says, "This is it." No words, no effort, no method. It's in that moment that everything that once felt far away becomes intimate. The formula that so many looked for in books, gurus, rituals, reveals itself without warning. Like it had always been there, just waiting for you to stop searching. Because it's not about learning more. It's about forgetting what you were taught about effort, control, and forcing. True surrender, the kind Thoth lived, not just taught, wasn't a step-by-step. It was a state of being. A depth of alignment with the whole so complete that any attempt to control feels absurd. The universe doesn't need to be manipulated when you become part of it. When you vibrate on the same frequency as creation, you don't need to say what you want. You become what you ask for, and what resonates with you simply arrives. That state is the formula. But it can't be packaged. It can't be taught in words because every time we try to describe it, we limit what it is. It's not a technique, not a prayer, not a mantra. It's a field, a vibrant silence, calm clarity, a presence that doesn't push but also never leaves. Picture the exact moment when a drop of water, resisting the fall, finally lets go of the leaf. It didn't decide to fall. It just wasn't holding on anymore. That is surrender. It's when the being stops resisting its own flow, and in that fall it finds the lightness of simply being what it is. No control, no defense, no why. Thoth left this teaching not as doctrine but as frequency. He knew that deep down there's nothing to achieve. Everything is already here. The only thing separating you from full manifestation is the belief that something's still missing. But when that illusion drops, what's left isn't emptiness. It's pure power. The real manipulation of the universe isn't done with desire or ambition, but with resonance. And that resonance can't be forced. It only rises when the ego stops shouting, when the heart stops begging, and everything inside you just vibrates with what is. Now that this formula has found you, the universe will watch what you do with it. If you felt something move inside you up to this point, write in the comments, "I let go and was guided." That phrase isn't just symbolic. It activates the intention and strengthens the field of others who are also awakening. And if you'd like to support the channel more directly, there's a safe link for that in the first pinned comment, or if you prefer, hit the super thanks button here on YouTube. With that, you helped spread this frequency even further out there. Gratitude for feeling this with me. And before you go, I want to tell you, a video has been chosen just for you to continue this journey. It's right there on the screen waiting for your next step. Click it now and I'll see you there.